Welcome back everybody to When the Dutch Went to Space, an RP-1 playthrough set in an alternative reality in which the Dutch take the lead in space exploration using European technology. Kicking off in June 12th, 1974, regolith-1 or Lunar Exploration Roving Vehicle number 1. A vehicle built in cooperation with Japan. This is very closely following the Artemis profile, in which a large pressurized rover is going to be sent ahead of a crewed landing, allowing them to go further than ever before and do maybe a crewed exploration in a little bit more comfort than in the lunar buggies. Though they are awesome, they don't exactly come with a cigarette lighter. We see our trusted VPAL 7, 0 launch failures actually, putting our Braille heavy lander platform into orbit. And the Braille platform has been to the moon several times now. It's proven to be very trustworthy, regardless if it's carrying an upper stage that is going to take astronauts back to Earth, or if it is just being used to put a base or cargo at the moon. And here you can see our cargo. It is a heavy lunar rover vehicle. I should have actually put 2 more wheels on it, but I had anticipated that in the future it will feature new docking ports to the sides. And since I was not exactly sure how that would pan out with the base, because the base has not been deployed or designed at this point in stage, I just left a bit of space between them, and it will be fine, but it's going to be a bit top heavy, as you can see. We are descending on the Braille lander platform using MagJab. You can see it's pulsating a bit. I'm using MagJab to do the precise landings. I can do lunar landings. I can do them reasonably close, like within a kilometer or maybe even a couple of 100 meters. Like you've seen me do this in previous episodes. It's just like meter precision is way out of my comfort zone, especially with the tight margins that we still have. The Braille platform packs about 2000 meters per second, and you need about 1900, 1800 to land properly on the moon. And if you want to do it very precise and your inclination changes, it's really tricky to do that. But regardless, MagJab is doing an awesome job. You can see it pan out, and I've moved it slightly more to the east of the base. So this time we should not be landing as close as we did last time. And you can see him put down its cargo. We've turned off the lights so we can actually see something in the dark. However, we can't deploy this rover because it's not having a ramp, as you can see. For that we will need a crew, the crew that is launching on June the 17th, 1974. Sonarti Shinaga is going back to the moon. She is mission commander of Luna G8. G meaning yet. We have yet another design of our infrastructure that we are sending to the moon. G, I lost count, but it's like the 8th iteration of our design, I think. Also on board is Jessa Martin. She is a new astronaut from the UK. Fabian Petit from France, of course. And that's the crew. So we have a 3-people crew. We see the boosters separated, and the huge tank has pushed its payload into the upper atmosphere where the second stage can do its thing. You can see the nose go dropping away, and the whole stack has been put into orbit. And we're using the new Universal Kepler crew capsule, and as you remember, we sent one up to the space station carrying food and supplies, but this one is holding an additional fuel tank behind its cargo hold. So we have this universal design now that we can use to go both to low Earth orbit operations or to the moon and bring a couple of tons of cargo in there. We also decided to get rid of the fairings because the margins are quite tight, and that's because we've packed the Kepler really full with fuel. It's gonna need a lot of fuel to actually get a capture. It's gonna do most of the work. It is using now exactly the same architecture as Apollo is, so we need the command module with its service module to actually capture us around the moon, which is what we're doing here. It was a long burn, And we had to do a little bit of an inclination change, but it all turned out fine. You may have also spotted we have a new lander. Yes, we're moving away from the Braille platform, and this is called the Wubbo lander. Wubbo Ockels was the first Dutch astronaut in space. He went on a space lab mission. I remember when I was a kid, it was super exciting. We had a Dutch guy going to space on the American space shuttle, and he was inside this huge laboratory that they put in the cargo hold. And regardless, this new lander is also a mix of American and European and other technologies. So we have a Hydrolox descent stage, which makes it lighter, allowing us to create a little bit heavier upper stage, so we can actually ferry 3 people down, which means nobody's staying in orbit, which means longer duration stays. That's the idea behind it. And the Hydrolox is something like 2200, 2100, somewhere in between that, meters per second, and this will put us safely down. It's powered by an RL-10, and this is actually a engine that was designed in the Apollo Applications program. And if you're a fan of the show For All Mankind, you in the second season, I think it's second season, you can see them using a new LSAM vehicle, which is sort of this idea based on an RL-10 that you could refuel on the moon using oxygen and hydrogen, which you could get from ice. On For All Mankind, I do think the lander is way too small. As you can see, Hydrolox is typically means big tanks, but we'll forgive them that part. They have landed on the moon, still really close. We need a landing pad or some other way of beacons to get closer or to get safer landings. Fabien Petit is leaving the craft, and he can't really wait to deploy the moon camper. His mission, he's from France, he is also the resident engineer. You've seen him on the space station doing his magic on the solar panels. He's well versed. He's been to the moon before, he's a regular by now. And he's gonna pick up his little toolbox and work on the lander. And Tsunati Shinaga is also leaving the capsule and making her way to maybe supervise or assist Fabian on his mission to deploy the new rover, which is going to be the core of our mission. So we're here to prepare the base, and in our narrative it also means that we can use the rover to move regolith around, get more science from further away. And this is our third person. Jesse Martin is our new UK astronaut, and he's super excited to be on the moon. Here we go. And high speed, we can see Fabian here taking the Brying landing platform apart. So he needs to pick up his toolbox, and then he gets to work because he needs to build a ramp. And I thought I can build a ramp with infernal robotics and moving parts and make it super complex. Or, since we already have a ton of panels on the lander itself, why not use those and take the lander apart and build a ramp in situ with the parts that you have lying around. This is probably what would happen. I mean, you brought all these kilos of materials, I don't think it's tons, but like kilos of materials to the moon. Let's use them. And you can see them move the parts around, and I'm adding all the spare parts back to the base, but the legs refuse to attach. And here we go, Leader of One leaving its lander platform, driving through one of the landing legs and coming to rest at the lunar survey. And it's operational, and we short took that part in that landing base apart. So he's tired, we need to go to the base, and as we are getting into our base, getting ready because it's night and the CUT is starting to build up, I realized, oh yeah, this is a 2-person base, and obviously that's not gonna fit 3, which means we need to move the crew over to the American base, and we also have to move over one of the nuclear reactor. Not so good. For some reason the Braille platform clipped into the surface and is making us round. Maybe a valve elapsed on the RCS system and it's blowing away in the distance. Anyway, Fabian is not taking any chances. He's jumping and trying to get into the base to safety as quickly as he can. and then realizing that we can't fit 3 people in there, so we need to move to Kennedy base. That's what's happening right now. We're transitioning all the people to the American base, which is much larger, has a bigger capacity and nicer parts as well. You can see the reactor bolted to the side as well. We worked hard during the lunar night, and in the distance you can see what we've been up to. In our narrative, we probably used the rover to move all the regoliths around. Maybe we created the scoop from the panels that we had. And in KSP, of course, I used Kerbal constructs and a little bit of config file editing to come up with paths that I could use. And they're glued into the terrain, so they're not going to bounce around, and they do have colliders enabled, so Fabian has to go out there and inspect the work that the team has been doing, and he's making the final round of inspections based on whatever Surya asked him to do on qualification measures. And the only thing he had to do is get into the rover, which could have been easier. I forgot to put on a ladder, and as a result, we have to jump in exactly the right distance to hang on to something and grab something and actually get in there. And as you can see, that's not that easy. I'm not sure if I can retrofit a ladder. I'm definitely going to try, but anyway, he grabbed hold of the solar panel, is taking a look at it, hopefully not breaking it, getting down, and he can grab the EVA handrails that we mounted on the sides, and then hopefully traverse to the right, but no. That's not going to happen. It's so that's not very likely.
Hours later.
This took forever, but finally he did get into the craft, and he's making his rounds, driving around the new campsite. I'm really proud of this one. This took a lot of time. I took some parts from asphalt tiles, I think it's called, from ash, and turn those parts into statics for Kerbal constructs. You can do a bit of config file editing. It's not that difficult. Look in some of the Kerbal constructs configuration files to get examples, and then you can create your own statics, which is pretty cool. In the distance, he's also making an inspection of the pile of regolith that they've been experimenting with, see if all the concrete hardened out, and that definitely happened. So he has a hard time driving over it, and this is a sample of the cave kind of structure that they're building that could be used for a base in the future. But for that we will need new material, because Briar Base will be decommissioned. We have decided that it's just not up to snuff anymore. So we spent a lot of time in there. We spent 2 weeks in there last. We spent 2 weeks in there last time. We're gonna spend a month on the moon this time, and we ran out of nitrogen, and using a nitrogen pressurizer to actually get it done. So we decided to decommission it, but we also decided that there's so very expensive sciencey stuff on it that I want to bring that home, and that's basically what you can see right here. I'm moving the science equipment one by one from the Briar lander to a small panel that we added to the side of the Lerov rover, and it's going to be super helpful. This is going to help us to move stuff around and bring it to the base, and we are also going to move the other nuclear reactor, of course. You only need one, but if you have to, you have a backup. And there also is about a month worth of supply still in the Briar base that we're going to bring over to Kennedy base. There's a high gain antenna, which is also something that the Kennedy base doesn't have. It has a relay antenna, which is fine because we got a ton of relay satellites in orbit. But yeah, why not? Why not? And you can see us move the RWPS experiment, which is a radio wave experiment, which is something we may want to try on the moon. And here you can see me drive all the parts that have been bolted onto the rover, and we're driving over this very short distance. But yeah, it's better to do everything at once. Climbing the base did mean I lost a couple of solar panels because I broke them. Now, alright, I'm not going to show you the entire video. We spent a week driving out to Mare Funiatis, which is a little bit south of us, southeast, if there's something like southeast on the moon. I guess there is. And this is a very, very long drive, but it's beautiful out here. It's amazing. And we bring back a lot of science, and the Kennedy base actually has a lab on board in this mission module that's sitting on top of the lander module. And based on all the supplies that we have, we can do some amazing science. But after 1 month on the moon, I think it was a little bit over a month actually, because I was a little bit too late, we have to go back to our trusted ascent vehicle, unlock some of the batteries because we lost all solar power, because we also lost the other solar panel. Not sure how that happened. It was there when I landed, but now it's gone. But this is Jesse getting on board, getting his seat, making sure everything is in place, going over the flight schedule. Fabian has to take one more look at this amazing lander, and then it's time to blast off the moon. And you could actually see it lift up the descent stage. That's how much power this little engine actually has. This engine is an interesting engine. You will see it in a moment. It's powered by UDMH and how do you call it? Denitro 4 oxide. I don't know how to pronounce that. My chemistry days are well behind me. Tetroxide, I think. Yeah, I think it's called nitrous tetroxide. It's a Russian engine actually. It's the 11D4110. Just look at those interior designs. This is the Alcor pod, and it has some of the best IVAs that I'm aware of. You can actually see so much data. You can also control the spacecraft actually from the buttons that are in here, which is not something we're going to do because that's super scary. But it's great that you can actually do that. There's a video from a YouTuber out there that actually lands on the moon using just IVA. But I'm happy with having MacJack fly the rendezvous for us. Yeah, so I was talking about the engine. The 11D4110 is the engine that was actually meant for the lunar lander. And here you can see it. It is a super efficient chemical engine, so we can use stored propellant to actually get there, and it gets something like 315 ISP, and it gets relight. So I thought that's probably the best one. And then given our current relationship, it would be cool if we would combine those different tags. They're back to the Kepler spacecraft, ditching the lander after transferring the science in the sample and making their way back. And the entire cargo hold is filled with fuel, which means it has more than enough fuel. It's got kerosene and NTO on board, so we should be fine. However, this is also powered by an RL10 variant, and I forgot to test the burn times. And the burn times are very fine for the standard fuel package. Actually, we're underboard burning at that point, but we're grossly overboard burning for the fuel that we added, so by a factor of 3 probably. And that is something that this engine, with the amount of engine data that we have, is not going to like, which means we have a burn failure. Yes, we are in a 19-hour orbit around the moon with a burn failure. So we had to make 2 passes and use the RCS thrusters that we have on the back, and I did bolt on very powerful one, but still the RCS thrusters only give you a couple of newtons compared to the hundreds and maybe kilonewtons of the RL10. So this took a very, very, very long time, but we did manage to get back. You can see we still have RCS fuel as we make it all the way to Earth, and we go into a small spin. I thought I was smart spin stabilizing my craft, but yeah, that didn't work. And we actually ended up a little bit lower than usual, something like 65 kilometer as a periapsis, which will prove to be interesting. So will burn. We've got tons of ablator on this thing, so it's not gonna blow up, but it's gonna pull quite a bit of G's. So it's going through the upper atmosphere very, very fast. And you can see it light up, lose off all its energy, and the crew actually blacked out for a brief moment, like taking the brunt of the G's and then finally making it back. And we need to build out our base and use that new landing pad. But that is something that we are going to do in a future episode, where we are going to start working on our lunar village and bring over the big base that I am designing. Probably next week. I hope I can see you again then.